Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me ask you all a question first. What is freedom of speech? And do you think it is correct to have unlimited, unrestricted, endless freedom of speech everywhere? Let me show you a video first. So what do you think you just saw? There's a very racist woman making very racist, rude and insulting comments to a random woman just walking by that she just bumped into at Walmart. So do you think this is correct? Do you think this kind of free speech should be tolerated? If one is able to yell out such insulting, such rude comments in front of another human being, what do you think it's like behind the screen, where we can even become like keyboard warriors? So what do you think unlimited free speech will lead to? That's why. Now here today, I'm going to argue and try to persuade you. Free speech should have limits. There should be limits to freedom of speech on social media. So first, let me define what is freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is a principle that supports the freedom of an individual or a community to articulate their opinions and ideas without fear of retaliation, censorship, or any legal sanctions. So freedom of speech is an apparently simple concept that you would expect people to understand very well. And after all, it's just fundamental human right? But we thought that's what we thought. But there are things that should be kept better off silent, or there are things that we shouldn't say in front of public or type it on social media. But this freedom of speech is often abused. It's the right that people misuse. So people defend all sorts of nonsense in the name of freedom of speech. Like the video we just saw, some could even argue that it's a freedom of expression or freedom of speech, but we know it is not correct. So why should freedom of speech be restricted on social media? Firstly, as I mentioned earlier, internet allows people to become anonymous, or to an extent, unless you track the IP code or do some fancy computer work that I don't know. But so the liability of their speech is often greatly neglected. It's like behind the keyboard, it's a lot easier for people to make irresponsible comments or hate speech that targets people and injuring people's psychological well-being. So it enhances keyboard warriors. They can type whatever they want. They are warriors behind the keyboard. They can say what they want to say that they don't dare to say in front of the public. 40% of American adults complain of online abuse, and 73% have actually witnessed it. We've already reached a tipping point. That's why we have to change this. There should be limits to social media's freedom of speech. Secondly, the internet will become a very unfriendly and unpleasant place for minorities. So let it be the LGBT communities, or the racial minorities, or even religion minority groups. They are often the target of hate speech. For example, a frank and open comment of Muhammad's sexual relationship to a 9-year-old girl is an insult to or offensive to the Muslim groups. So please look at this graph. It shows the most prominent type of hate speech is those on ethnicity and nationality. Aren't we supposed to live in a harmonious, global, and racially integrated world? We have progressed so far from our dark history of the Holocaust, of the apartheid system, of slavery. We have progressed so much from discriminating the minorities and grant equal rights to everyone. Aren't we supposed to embrace diversity and strive for a more peaceful, more equal world? And we shouldn't let free speech on social media regress us back to those times. We should be more embracing and do not say discriminating things and defend it with the nature of freedom of speech. So thirdly, unrestricted freedom of speech on social media is basically an open trap for people to create cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is bullying that occurs through the internet, and it is as hurtful seeing those brutal comments as it is hearing it in person. So online bullying is not freedom of speech, it is abuse. The harassment of women on the internet, or the hate speech towards Muslims, or the mocking to that kid in class, these are bullying. These are not freedom of speech. So we should not defend this in the name of freedom of speech. So in conclusion, the freedoms of the internet are often abused. To summarize, firstly, it enhances irresponsible speech due to seemingly non-existent liability. Secondly, there's often hate speech towards minority groups. Thirdly, it amplifies cyberbullying. So some may argue it is simply human nature, the inescapably nasty and brutish ways of the world finding electronic expression. But some may also argue it is their right to express their opinions or their truthful feelings, disregarding others' feelings and consequences. But these are not valid excuses. We should impose some, implement some restrictions. I know some have already had, like Facebook and Twitter, to protect minorities and prevent cyberbullying. It is difficult, but there is no need to despair yet. Physical chastisement of women was once a norm, and racist name-calling was once just a bit of fun. But slowly, time has called a change on this shoulder-shrugging indifference, and the world changed. So we just need to keep changing. We just need to strive for a world, a peaceful social media world, where freedom of speech is kind of restricted, or people know what we should say and what cannot be said. And people, or everyone in this world, should be able to live without being targeted or, being a target of hate speech. Everyone should be able to live comfortably on the internet, in real life, at ease. Thus, freedom of speech should be restricted on social media to a certain extent to prevent hate speech or those speech that hurts other people. So, thank you very much.